Hello and welcome everyone back to the Remnant Christian Book Reading Channel. Today we're going to be doing The Oath, Chapter 3. I know. Maybe you think like I do and think, man, this book is taking too long. One chapter a week is kind of stinky, but the chapters are long, so take that as you will. Now, last time we left off, we saw that Steve had killed the bear 318 because of it being a nuisance and because it was rumored to have mauled his brother Cliff. And we also met Levi Cobb, a interesting man to say the least. If you haven't or you don't remember the last chapter, go ahead and re-listen to it. Maybe just jog your memory if you already did. And get ready because this next chapter is going to be very, very interesting. With that being said, let's just begin and get ready. By the way, guys, you should be grabbing a drink or some popcorn or something while you're listening to this because you're going to need to focus and listen to this very carefully. My advice is make sure that you're actually listening to it actively because there's a lot of stuff that you'll miss if you don't pay attention. So, enough of my yapping. Let's get comfortable and let's go. Although Hyde Valley is best known for its gold and silver mining, the rugged trails and forest lands of Wells Peak and Saddlehorse Mountain provide a unique outdoor experience for hikers, campers, anglers, and hunters. While Hyde Valley is rumored to have had more bear attacks per capita than anywhere else in the contiguous United States, such rumors derive more from tradition than fact and should not be taken seriously. Nevertheless, care and caution should always be exercised in the wild to prevent accidental encounters with bears. Always stay on the trails and take precautions with food. From a local travel brochure, circa 1970. There was one Grizz we called Old Scar, lived up on the Tyler Gorge. He ate Jack Friday, I know. Jack went up there fishing and never came back, and all we ever found was his pole and one of his boots. Could have been Old Scar ate Jules Howard, and maybe he ate that lady cook we had. What was her name? Nancy, I think. Somebody found her apron and part of her foot out in the woods, but nothing else. Yeah, it's always been that way. Retired miner Homer Bentlow and recorded interview transcribed in Hyde River Memories by Jill Staton, copyright 1965. Here we go. Chapter 3. The Victim. Herman 318, thanks to a team of hefty volunteers and a pickup truck, was now laid out on 2 sheets of 1-inch plywood and several sawhorses in Marcus Dufresne's garage near West Fort. Some of the volunteers wanted to hang around and see the verdict, but Marcus, being sensitive to Steve's situation, thanked them and sent them away. The two men went out about the autopsy slowly, working under the ceiling lights and also employing a mechanic's work light at times. Just as Marcus let Steve have the first shot, he now let Steve handle the knife. Marcus had already estimated the bear's age to be between 10 and 12 years. Herman was a healthy bear with a good supply of fat under his hide, so hunger wasn't an obvious motivator for aggression. They found no significant wounds or injuries, only the bullet wounds Steve had inflicted. As for the contents of the stomach and intestines, well, Steve said, wiping his hands on a towel. We weren't expecting much anyway, were we? Marcus shook his head. I don't know what to say. They found donuts and bacon grease, of course, but 318 had also been feeding quite well on berries, roots, and herbage. There were a few shreds of food wrappings from someone's garbage. As for flesh of any kind, there was no sign of it. Steve felt disappointed and relieved at the same time. He hasn't been feeding exclusively on human waste, Steve observed. But I would say his diet suggests habituation. Although that's all it suggests, Marcus countered. I agree. We can extrapolate the infer aggression, but there's no objective evidence. They both looked forlornly at the dead bear. Its belly opened like a broken suitcase, its innards spread out over the makeshift table. And you're sure you don't have some other candidates out there? Steve asked. Marcus gave a slight chuckle. Well, all I can say is that Herman was the best, most likely candidate. He was the most logical candidate, and given what we know, I guess we got the culprit. Steve was unsatisfied and didn't hide it. We'll see what Evie has to say. How's she doing? She was in bad shape yesterday, but I'm sure she'll be okay given time. I hope she can tell us what happened. That would clear things up for sure. Then came a silence. Both men were thinking the same thing, but Marcus was afraid to mention it and Steve didn't want to talk about it. Marcus finally gave it a try. So, when's that autopsy? It was supposed to be today. I could give the coroner a call. Steve checked his watch. Kinda late. I can rouse him, I think. Marcus approached his next question carefully. What? How much do you want to know? Steve looked down at 318, regarding the rows of teeth and the long white claws. Just enough, Marcus. Just enough to know for sure. Midway between dusk and dawn, amid the silhouettes of old ruins etched in charcoal against the velvet sky, a lone figure stole silently past the old, teetering walls and crumbling foundations, his black clothing blending with the deep, angular shadows so as to make him invisible. No one would know his business. Everyone else was afraid to go near this place. With silent featherlight steps, he entered a large ruin, letting its 3 remaining walls shroud him in their shadows. In the center of the collapsed and rotting structure, he knelt before a large flat stone and placed his hands on its corners, his gaze fixed upon the stone dim, gray image. Then he prayed, muttering his request in a silent monotone. When he had finished, he drew a slip of paper from under his coat, placed it on the rock, and with a large black pencil scribbled a name, which he repeated over and over. Margaret Elizabeth, Margaret Elizabeth, Margaret Elizabeth. With the strike of a match, he set the paper on fire. Time for you to die, Maggie. The third morning after the attack, Steve met Tracy Ellis at the Clark County Medical Center. Evelyn was coherent and recovering. It was time to talk about her and what had happened on Wells Peak. They paused near the nurse's station to compare findings. Steve was dressed in casual slacks and shirt. He no longer looked like a grizzled, half-crazed outdoorsman. Tracy was back in her uniform, armed with a notebook and the case folder for the upcoming interview. Tracy looked troubled. The team finished combing the area all around the campsite, and the dogs have searched the wider area around Wells Peak. She shrugged. They didn't find anything. Steve only sighed. The autopsy on 318 showed a diet consistent with habituation, but beyond that, there was nothing conclusive. He handed her a photocopy of his written report, which consisted of just a few paragraphs. He liked berries, roots, grass, some human garbage, and the donuts we put out for him. But that's all we could find. My report will take about 30 seconds to read. So you haven't settled on 318 as the culprit? Steve only spread his hands. He really is the only viable candidate, and I'm willing to accept that. I'm just saying that the autopsy couldn't establish anything one way or the other. Have you seen the autopsy report on your brother? Marcus talked to the coroner last night, but I haven't seen the report yet. Have you? She nodded grimly. Got a copy this morning. She hesitated before saying, the bottom line is the pathologists think it was a bear. Yeah, that's what the coroner told Marcus, and I guess I can't argue with that. Steve looked down momentarily. Marcus and I have talked about actually viewing the remains. He was quick to add, but I think I'd rather have Marcus do it. I trust his judgment, his powers of observation. Tracy thought about it, then nodded. Have Marcus do it. Come on, let's see what Evie remembers. When they entered the room, Evelyn was sitting upright, the mattress raised and several pillows placed behind her back. Well, Steve said, smiling, you're looking better. Half vertical, anyway, Evelyn answered with a slight smile. You've met Deputy Alice? I think I met her 2 days ago. Tracy smiled. You did. Well, hi, again. Hi. There were 2 chairs in the room, and Steve and Tracy pulled them close to the bed, then sat down. At first, they talked in generalities about Evelyn's health, her 2 boys, Samuel and Travis, her mother, Audrey, the care she'd received, and anything else that came to mind that would not be difficult. Steve was encouraged. Evelyn was making perfect sense, speaking coherently. She was on her way back. So, said Tracy, her tone and pacing signaling the approach of a tough subject. Miss Benson, how comfortable would you be talking about what happened on Wells Peak? We still have to finish our investigation. You do understand, don't you? Sure. Tracy looked toward Steve. I'm glad Steve can be here. He's been working at his end, and the sheriff's department has been doing what it can, but... Or excuse me, let me reread that. I'm glad Steve can be here. He's been working at his end, and the sheriff's department has been doing what it can, but without a witness, it's been tough. Evelyn was apologetic. Officer, just call me Tracy. Okay, Tracy. I have to tell you, I don't remember very much. Well, Tracy said, trying not to be pushy, just start at the beginning and see how you do. Evelyn's face was troubled. She was struggling to remember, but also feeling the pain at every recollection. I remember Cliff went down to put away our leftovers. We'd cooked up a meal for the evening and, What did you have? Steve asked, hoping to jog her memory. Let's see. Evelyn thought for a moment, then said, vegetable soup and some crackers. Nothing meaty? Spicy? Something that would give off a strong smell? She shook her head. No, we try not to eat that stuff if there might be bears around. Besides, if I eat rich food after hiking, I want to throw up. Steve nodded, pleased and amused. So, okay, then what? He went down the hill to where he had the food stored, and it was dark by then, so I couldn't see him very well. By now, Tracy was discreetly scribbling notes. About what time was that? I guess between 9 and 10. Do you always eat that late? Do you always eat that late at night? Evelyn answered, no. We'd been doing a lot of hiking and took a long time to pick out a campsite. Then we'd figured we'd better get the tent up first, and by that time the sun was going down. Then Cliff wanted to rig up the food cache down in the trees while we still had some light. It all took time. So anyway, said Steve, you ended up eating late. Evelyn nodded. And cleaning up late. So then, Cliff went down to stow the leftovers, Tracy prompted. And Evelyn fumbled. I just remember him going down the hill in the dark, and I couldn't see him, just his flashlight sometimes. She stopped. She looked at them, and they looked at her. Silence. Tracy prompted. He'd gone down the hill with his flashlight. Evelyn just shook her head. And then I woke up in the hospital. Steve was disappointed, downright frustrated, actually, but tried not to show it. He looked as casually as he could at Tracy. See, she seemed strangely detached as she studied her notes. Her next question had a lighter tone. So, Cliff was a photographer? Uh-huh. Mainly, he did wildlife photography. Tracy looked at Steve. So this outdoors stuff must run in the family. Steve smiled. He welcomed the lighter topic. Pretty much. Tracy turned back to Evelyn. So, was that why you were up there on Wells Peak? Was he taking pictures up there? No, we just wanted to get away together. Just some time away, huh? Yes, he'd been working a lot of hours and we needed some time alone. We've been out hunting in Hyde Valley before. We really liked the Wells Peak area, so that's where we went this time. I understand your husband has been working in Hyde Valley for a few months. Is that right? That's right. Steve thought, impressed. Tracy had been doing her homework. Doing a photo shoot up and down the valley, Tracy continued. Evelyn nodded. He was doing local sportsman stuff. Hunting, fishing, that kind of thing. But he shot a lot of pictures in the old mining towns. He's always liked getting into the history and the people. So, he was away from home a lot? Evelyn hesitated just slightly before answering. Sure. He had to go where the pictures were. That must have been tough. Evelyn shrugged and a little sighed. I took it in stride. But that's why you wanted to get away together? Just spend time together for change? Evelyn sounded just a little perturbed. I believe I just said that. So, how would you say your marriage was going? Were you doing okay? Steve didn't say anything, but that question seemed a little odd. Maybe Tracy was just making bedside conversation. It wasn't a fiery romance. It wasn't a soap opera, Evelyn answered. It was just kind of in between. Tracy smiled. In between. We got along when we were together. When we weren't together, it was kind of hard to tell. Evelyn's tone was composed, but Steve had seen that look on Evelyn's face before. Tracy had better be careful. So things were going okay, but not, Tracy prodded. Not real okay. Evelyn went no further. Tracy scribbled some notes, then asked, Evelyn, do you own a hunting knife? Yes, both of us did. Steve interjected. She and Cliff used to go hunting a lot. Okay, Tracy replied, jotting it down. Evelyn, when you were found Saturday night, you still had your knife in your hand, and the blade was broken. Do you remember that at all? Evelyn took a moment to search her memory. Maybe. Kind of like a dream. I'm not sure. Do you have any recollection of attacking anything, having any kind of struggle, and using your knife? Evelyn was becoming visibly upset. I don't know. There's just this... It's like a dream in my head, and I can't remember it. Steve spoke softly, afraid he might press too far. Evie, we're looking for a bear, okay? We figure it was a grizzly that cut Cliff. Do you remember anything like that? He was obviously leading the witness, but he didn't care. Evelyn closed her eyes. Steve, I can close my eyes and all I see is a big shadow. Did you attack it? Tracy asked. Well, I guess I did. Now Evelyn's voice had an edge to it. Wouldn't you? There was blood on your clothing and on the knife. Do you recall that at all? Evelyn stiffened with the memory. I remember some blood. Do you remember where it came from? Evelyn looked straight at Tracy Ellis, tears filling her eyes. I understand it came from my husband. Steve could read Evelyn's face clearly. A line had been crossed. A limit exceeded. He cut in. Evie, that's okay. You don't have to talk about it anymore. Tracy looked his way. She obviously didn't appreciate his intruding on her investigation. And Steve didn't appreciate her questions. He addressed Evelyn, the one whose feelings he cared about. This whole thing's been real rough, I know. Let's let it go for now and you just rest up. Tracy, to her credit, picked up Steve's cue and relaxed. Yeah, just rest up. I'm very sorry to have to ask you such tough questions. Evelyn's gaze told Tracy she was not forgiven. Just doing your job, I guess. Steve rose to his feet. I've got some other things I want to look into. You just get better. He bent down and kissed Evelyn on the forehead. Thanks for your time, said Tracy. Evelyn turned her back to the deputy sheriff. Excuse me. Steve and Tracy made their way to the waiting area near the nurse's station. Each had an agenda for a serious talk and couldn't wait to get started. I'd like to know what that was all about, Steve demanded, trying to keep his voice low. Tracy tried the person in charge approach. I knew this would be a problem. Someone so emotionally involved. That will be enough. A couple who was sitting nearby looked their way. I'll be responsible for my emotions, deputy, Steve growled. You'd better concern yourself with how Evie must be feeling right now and how you treated her. Couldn't you see how frail she is? How could you go in there asking questions about knives and blood and how their marriage was doing? She just lost her husband, remember? Tracy purposely paused a moment to calm the situation down. Then she tried to present a rational, professional position. I had to ask particular questions as a matter of routine. We have to cover all contingencies. Like how her marriage was doing. Do you think that for one moment, what I think is immaterial? I have a job to do. Her tone was formal as she said, You're a professional. You know how important objectivity is in a situation like this, am I right? Steve wanted to lash back, but yanked his own leash and held it. She was right. He was offended and defensive for Evelyn's sake, and he was letting his feelings rule the moment. Tracy was in control. He wasn't. He took a breath and forced himself back into his professional role. It was like putting on a pair of tight shoes. Yes, you're right. You're right. Sort of. Sort of. Personal feelings aside, the idea of complicity on Evie's part is, well, it's untenable, unthinkable. And it seems you're having trouble blaming a bear, too. He wanted to deny it, but couldn't. I'm willing to accept any hard evidence. Then he narrowed his gaze, which raises the question of the autopsy report. He noticed her cringe slightly. Steve, is there additional evidence I still don't know about? She took time to formulate an answer. Maybe you do need to read that report for yourself. Maybe I need to review the remains for myself. She emphasized, Maybe you need to read the report and evaluate it first. He accepted that. Do you have it with you? She took the report from her folder. It was a document about 30 pages thick, held together with a large clip. He took it but didn't look at it. I'll read it before I confer with Marcus. Just keep in mind your relationship to the victim. I'm aware of my relationship to the victim. Who do you think you are, my babysitter? All right. All I want is the answer to our questions before you get any wrong ideas. She was clearly offended. Steve, I'm not jumping to any conclusions. I do have questions, though. So I observed. She drew a breath, held it, then gave a long sigh. Okay, Steve. You're the expert. Tell me what happened. That's what I'm trying to figure out. How is it that only Cliff was killed, and only his blood was on Evelyn's clothes, and Evelyn wasn't injured at all? If Evelyn came so close to the attack that she got Cliff's blood all over her, why wasn't she attacked as well? How did her hunting knife get broken? And how is it that she remembers everything else in such detail, even what they had for dinner, and what time they ate, and the order of events up to the crucial time in question, and then, ding, she's in dreamland. Steve had thought about that too. The attack was over by the time she got there. Upon finding what was left of Cliff, she went hysterical. We have the truck driver's testimony as to her disturbed mental state. And having gone hysterical, who knows what she may have done? Maybe she was embracing what was left or trying to put him back together. I don't know. But the hysteria is well established, I think. An explanation enough for her memory lapse. As for the knife, how do we know she didn't break the blade when she attacked the truck? The driver said the blade was already broken. So figure she went around stabbing trees or something. She was out of her mind. But even your scenario puts her and her husband together at the time of death. And you'll have to admit an attacking bear isn't necessary to produce the blood on her clothes. Except that I don't like your line of thinking, Deputy. I can't even entertain such a possibility. You don't have to, Steve. You're not a cop. Granted. Silence. So what's your next step? I'm going to take a drive out to Hyde River and talk to some friends. The same friends who told you Cliff had been in the area? The same. It's a small community, and word gets around. Well, I might just drive out there myself. She raised her hand. Whoa, hold on there. What? I know Hyde River. Do we agree on that? I guess so. So take this as wise advice from someone who knows. Don't go up there asking questions by yourself. You could get in more trouble than you ever wanted. He didn't follow her. I only want to ask around about... It doesn't matter, she interrupted. You'd be a stranger asking questions, and that's not welcome up there. He digested that for a moment. So we'll have to hope you find out something for both of us, I suppose. I suppose. Steve had already decided that wasn't going to be the case when he asked. So, when do we touch base again? I'll call you tonight at the Tamarack, or you call me. She scribbled a number on a corner of a notebook page and tore it off for him. Here's my home number. You can try me at the sheriff's department or at home. I'll let you know if I find out anything. All right. She was ready to leave, and so was he. Steve? Yeah? She spoke carefully. Take it slow. Marcus Dufresne came to Steve's motel room that afternoon. He looked pale and sick. He would have preferred a shot of Jack Daniels, but settled for some coffee Steve had in the thermos. They sat at the small round table near the window, the autopsy report between them. For the longest time, Marcus only stared at the report, trying to find words, while Steve sat, waiting silently, giving him as much time as he needed. I guess, Marcus finally began. Steve leaned forward. I guess the pathologist gave it his best guess. A grisly attack, considering what was left of your brother, and what else could he say? Have you read the autopsy report? Yeah, the whole thing this afternoon. Lots of technical jargon, but it was clear enough. Yeah, real clear. Well, what's in that report is what I saw today. Marcus stared into space as if watching a replay of his visit to the pathology department. One shoulder gone, no head, one arm detached. There were some ribs. Marcus touched his own chest to illustrate. Just sticking out of the cut, the bite, the whatever you want to call it. They were just snipped off, cut right through. It was a pretty clean bite line. As Tracy had done, Marcus traced it against his own body with his hand. It went from left shoulder to right pelvis. And did you read about the pelvis being cut through? Was it? It was. And the rest intact? Steve asked. Marcus nodded. The vital organs and the lower limbs were all there. Then he added, and that scar from the old gunshot wound? It was there, and the fingerprints from the left arm matched the prints on file with your brother's gun's permit. Just so you know. Steve nodded, then moved on to what he'd been thinking about, agonizing over all afternoon. No teeth marks or claw marks? No. And no animal hairs. Marcus reached into his shirt pocket. But I got some scrapings. He produced a small vial and set it on the table. Looked like it could be dried saliva. The pathologist couldn't make anything of it, but maybe you've got some people at the university who can figure out what it is. Steve held the vial up to the light and to examine the crusty slime. I'll FedEx it there right away. Then there was silence again. So? Steve prompted. What do you think? Marcus thought about it long and hard, then shook his head. Steve, this was one unique bear. Steve nodded. The soft organs were intact below the bite line. Mm-hmm. A bear would typically go for the abdomen for the soft organs first. He took a sip of coffee, and Marcus did the same. A bear will bite, clamp its jaws into its prey, tear at it, drag it. Marcus continued the line of thought. Yeah, bears do that. So do coyotes, wolves, cougars, vultures, eagles. This attack seemed a little neat, if you catch my meaning. Marcus spread his hands. So? How do you explain it? Steve rested his elbows on the table, his chin on his interlaced fingers. I think Tracy Ellis and the sheriff are already looking for another explanation. Tracy was asking Evie questions about her marriage. Poor Evelyn, Marcus said, disturbed by the thought. Then he offered, I've seen a few chainsaw accidents that happened during woodcutting season. The cut in the flesh wasn't anything like that, though. Steve could feel himself getting nauseous. He hated the question even as he asked it. Could it have been done with a hunting knife? Marcus looked back at him, hating the answer. I suppose, but it would have to have taken a long time and a lot of careful thought. I'd find it easier to believe a large mechanical sawing device was used like you'd find in a lumber mill. A device that would be pretty far from the campsite. You're right. And if a human device was used, there is still the question of the missing half. If it was not consumed by an animal, then what became of it? Steve felt bile rising in his throat. He swallowed hard. I can't believe the things we're talking about here. I may not eat for days, Marcus said grimly. But you see the problem? If we reject the whole bear idea, then we have to open up the investigation to some horrible possibilities. I guess that's what Tracy's doing right now. I guess. Then Marcus said, but the pathologist doesn't want to go that far. He said it was a bear attack. Marcus narrowed his eyes. But in person, off the record, talking to me, in other words, he couldn't account for the condition of the body. He said he couldn't say for sure what caused it. So we're back to where we started. Steve got up abruptly and headed for the door. I need some air. I'm with you. They stepped outside into the parking lot. Steve's vehicle, a well-integrated truck and camper combination, was parked near the room. Marcus walked over to admire it, just for something else to think about. Nice rig. Yeah, I've put a lot of miles on it. It's been to Canada, Alaska, Yellowstone. 4-wheel drive? Oh, yeah. Marcus looked into the windows at the tight and efficient living environment. Then he turned. I'd better get going. I sure hope you solve this thing. Though, I'm going to solve it, all right, Steve replied, his voice strained. Even if I have to ruffle some feathers in Hyde Valley. And that's the end of chapter 3. Ooh. That was good. A shorter chapter for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it because it was pretty interesting. We got a lot of information about the victim and a lot of information about suspect number 1, Evelyn Benson. Now, in your eyes, as the viewer, since I already know what happened, I've read this book twice already. I found it amazing twice. 2 times in a row, I've loved it. So as a viewer, fresh eyes, what is your opinion about it? What are you thinking about what's going on with the victim, with Tracy Ellis, with everything? It's interesting. It's a real murder mystery. But don't worry, if you guys haven't forgotten, we are in the Remnant Christian Book Reading channel, so there is Christ in here. We just have to find him. Anyways, I am excited for the next chapter. I think maybe perhaps next video I do of the oath, I might end up doing it. Either doing a live video for the very first time, a live video, which would be next Thursday, or I would do a marathon. Either or. So, you let me know what you would like to have in the comments below. A marathon or a live, where everyone can comment and talk with me while we're reading. With that being said, I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Also, I apologize if you hear noise in the background. It's just how things are. But anyway, I hope you all have a beautiful night, day, afternoon, whenever you're watching. Remember that Jesus loves you. God bless you all. Bye-bye.